Corley Moore here, Firehouse Vigilance with the weekly scrap, coming at you with 3 things you can do today to make you a more effective leader. Now, I'm going to go on record and say that I am by no means an expert on leadership, but one thing I do consider myself an expert on is studying and learning and reading. I love reading books. I love taking notes on those books, ripping them apart, reading articles, listening to podcasts. I love doing all of that and then taking what I learn and passing it on. A lot of times I do that by writing articles and putting them out there on Firehouse Vigilance so people can read them. But one thing I do know is that a lot of firefighters just don't enjoy reading. They're just not readers, as a general rule. And it's not a knock on them at all. And so I'm hoping that these weekly scraps will be something they can take, something they can enjoy, and use to get some of this information out. So with that being said, we're going to talk about leaderships today. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that probably the number one authority on leadership is John Maxwell. It's just hard to knock. The guy's written 70 books on leadership, 20 million books in print. It is, it's hard to argue that he knows more about leadership than almost anybody out there. And he defines leadership. Leadership is straight up influence. That's what it comes down to, how much you can influence other people. And that's his definition of it, and that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. There's not rocket science. There is no hidden formula, no secret recipe hidden under lock and key. Basically, the root of all problems, and this is a broad statement, but the root of all problems, whether it be in a relationship, your family, the firehouse, it always comes down to communication or the lack thereof. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about, is how to improve that communication. And there's one simple thing you can do to improve the communication, and that is to shut up and listen. STFU. And that's tip number 1. When you're talking, don't sit there and wait for your turn to speak. Listen to what they're saying. Take in what they're saying. Try to understand their point. Probably one of the greatest things you can do in being a communicator is just to listen. And it's probably the number one failing on communication. Lots of reasons for this. There's ego. Ego is probably the biggest one. But if we can just learn to shut up and listen to the other person, hear their point of view, then so many problems would go away. And I'm not saying this is easy. It is very simple. It's just not easy to do. So that being said, that's tip number 1. And if you try this out, if you go into it and you say, hey, I'm going to try this whole be quiet thing and listen, and people start reacting weird to you, people start looking around going, hey, what's up with Cap? What's up with, if they start doing that, then you know you have a problem with dominating the conversation. So something to think about. That's tip number 1. Shut up and listen. Number 2, and this is a big one, and that is to pass out sincere praise when it's earned. We are really, really good at pointing out when people mess up. In the fire service especially, we're excellent at pointing out when people screw up, when people make mistakes. Human nature, I guess, and we're good at it as firefighters. And so, and this goes to Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. A big one from him is pass out praise when it's earned and deserved. And so when your guys do something good, make sure you say so, and you say so in front of others. Make sure that you acknowledge and recognize it. There is nothing that people enjoy more than being acknowledged for something they earned. And this is not flattery. There's a big difference. It can't be flattery. Flattery is empty. So if your guys bust ass, kick ass, and do good work, make sure you say so. If someone does something worth recognizing, recognize it. Pass out sincere praise when it's earned. That's a huge tip number 2 to improve your leadership abilities, improve your leadership influence. One simple thing you can do is make sure you acknowledge people when they do good. And then the final one is excuses. This one applies all walks of life, not just leadership. And that's a big thing about a lot of these principles, is they apply to more than just leadership in a firehouse. But excuses. We all have excuses. We love our excuses. We love holding them close to us. They keep us safe. They keep us warm at night. but it's those excuses that keep us from getting stuff done. And I'm talking about, like, you've made commitments to yourself in your head. Sit there and say, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to get back in the gym. I'm going to start training more with my guys. Insert whatever goal you've set to yourself in your head, and then what stops you from getting that done. And it's those precious excuses that you like to hold close. And don't get me wrong, I love my excuses. I'm one of the best at having excuses keeping me from getting where I want to go. But whatever it is you said you were going to do, dump the excuses and get to it. Again, it's an extremely simple concept, just not easy to implement. So that's it. That's the big three. Number one, shut up and listen. Number two, pass out praise when it is deserved. And number three, overcome your own excuses. 3 simple things you can do today to make yourself a more effective leader. And so that's it for the weekly scrap. As far as that goes, the rest of it is, we got the Pride and Grind coming up in 2 days. If you are coming to it, make sure you get your tickets. Tomorrow is the last day to get a ticket. Chief Mike Walker from Oklahoma City, it's fun to say that now, Chief Brian Brush from Midwest City, and Chief Scott Thompson from the Colony, all going to be speaking about culture in the fire service, history of the fire service. Going to be a wonderful day. I'm super excited, ready for it to be here. And then, of course, the Firehouse Vigilance. I'm going to be posting the video there. I hope you make comments and questions on what you'd like to see in the next weekly scrap. Always trying to get people join the Firehouse Vigilant. There's no cost, no money. It's simply look at the Vigilant Creed, take a picture holding it up where it's signed, and send that picture in to firehousevigilance@gmail.com, and boom, you're a member of the Vigilant. That's easy way to join. Now, that doesn't mean you need to live up to that creed, that whole thing you sign. That's the whole point of it. It's an accountability to excellence. But we're at 34 states, 16 to go to reach our first goal of having a firefighter in all 50 states sign it. So only 34 states left to go. So if you have not done so yet, please do so. And thanks for joining us for the weekly scrap. I hope the tones stay silent, unless, of course, it's burning. So I'll see you next week.